get back to the NBA. Ric Bucher joins us, Fox Sports 1 NBA analyst. Bucher, I'll tell you what I said twice during the show. I completely get what the Clippers did, and I agree with it. Why would you, just out of ego, want to have a tougher matchup when you could have a matchup you feel better about in getting, the 4 seed? I think that's the smart thing to do. But what do you think?
Yeah, I don't actually have a problem with it. I don't know that that the Clippers could guarantee that they were going to be in a certain place, or that this was all about avoiding the Lakers per se, as it was, okay, we got a couple games left. How do we want to approach these games? We've had a couple of stars who have been dinged up. I mean, I couldn't help but think about LeBron and Anthony Davis, because of the circumstances that they were in, having to play yesterday, and both tweaking their ankles as a result, and that now we're looking at them in a different context going into the postseason. Right. The angling of and positioning of the Clippers, to me, I'm sure Lakers fans and anybody who wants to carry on the narrative from last year about the Clippers can say, oh, they're scared of the Lakers. I really don't think it's that. I don't think they're afraid to play the Lakers. I think that they're looking at it in the context of what's our best avenue to winning a championship. I think of Kawhi Leonard in particular. Correct. I think of Rajon Rondo, and I look at them and I go, are they afraid of LeBron? Are they afraid of the Lakers? I don't have any sense that either one of them has ever felt that way, much less that would feel that way now because of what I've seen from the Clippers this year, where I just think they are, I don't know whether they're good enough to get it done.
I would agree. I also would tell you that I'm not sure the Lakers want to play I'm not sure the Lakers want to play the Clippers.
I would agree. I would agree with that too.
Because they have a substantial amount of respect for Rondo. They have a substantial amount of respect for Kawhi Leonard, and they're really built to stop LeBron, right? And
yep.
And their offseason acquisition of Serge Ibaka has gone much better than that of Marc Gasol, so much so that they had to basically replace Marc Gasol and go get Andre Drummond. So
honestly, I haven't really been in love with the Montrezl Harrell addition. No, I don't think he fits.
Well, no, they have 3 pieces that if they could combine, right? You got Drummond, but he doesn't help you on offense, and then defense is he's. And then what do you do with, you can't play Marc Gasol and Drummond together. And then Montrezl Harrell at times, his play has been limited because, there's one thing he does in terms of scoring. He doesn't really defend. He's not really a rebounder. And is he kind of in the way of Anthony Davis and LeBron and how they play? So, yep. The idea of Gasol was a good one. The problem is Gasol's washed.
Yep. No, look, I was one of those that looked at the additions that they made last summer and thought they got better. And that is not the way that it's played out. I dare say that if you had it to do all over again, the Lakers would swap Wes Matthews for Danny Green. They thought that was going to be a decided upgrade. Dwight Howard to Marc Gasol, clearly not as efficient or providing anywhere close to what Dwight Howard did last year. And Montrezl Harrell, I feel like one of the he was an emotional energy player, and the way he fits with the Lakers and playing with LeBron, as you said, whether it's with AD or whether it's with LeBron, it's not an efficient game, and he doesn't give you what you ultimately need in order to get the most out of LeBron and AD. You have to be a complementary player. And to your point, you have to do one thing really well, and then LeBron is able to apply that to the big picture. And I don't know what that one really well thing is that Montrezl Harrell does.
Doug Gottlieb Show here on Fox Sports. I think, he attacks the rim with great energy. I think that would probably be the thing. But
okay, so that doesn't really fit with the way that if you're playing as a complementary player with LeBron, that works.
No, listen, you and I actually see eye to eye on this thing. Ric Bucher joining us here in the Doug Gottlieb Show on Fox Sports Radio. But I think the point you made to start was the smartest point that not enough people have played. Like, the Lakers don't really fear Steph Curry per se. Like, they respect Steph Curry, and he can beat you in a game. But what they feared of the playing game is the extra games, and then the extra games the next series, and then the extra games the next series.
Right.
And ultimately, more games on LeBron and Anthony Davis and an older team means somebody's likely to get hurt, right? That's which kind of played out yesterday.
Yeah, well, and we've seen it. I mean, Alex Caruso just recently has to sit down with a bad back. They've had. This is what is normal for a team that is a defending champion. Is that when you get to the end of the following season, you're worn down a little bit more than anybody else, and health is a bigger factor. It's why it is so rare that teams, I think we've gotten accustomed to teams repeating or returning to the finals because of some of the teams that we've had and where they've been. But it's really, there's usually a beatdown as a result of playing and winning a championship. And I feel as if that is what we are seeing in much the same way especially when you are riding particular players. Your core is not only essential, but it's relatively small. And I felt the same way with the Warriors in 18-19, just not, I didn't expect KD to break down, but I thought, not that I was wishing it, but Draymond or Steph or Clay, you just can't make that many deep runs year after year and it not take a toll. And I think that's some of what we're seeing with the Lakers and why the road there is so vital, and these additional games and then who they've got to play and long series. As I said on Undisputed this morning, like, if you're asking me, every team in the Western Conference, you can raise a question. You can suggest there's an Achilles heel.
Right.
But if you're asking me if I'm going to take, but that includes the Lakers.
Yeah.
And if you're asking me, am I going to take the Lakers or I'm going to take the field? I'm going to take the field. Not because I think there's the team out there that's going to beat them, but I think the residual effects of having to take the route that they're going to have to take and the condition that their two stars are in, there's ultimately going to be a price to pay.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think here's what, and I heard the argument, we actually played it earlier on the show. Ric Bucher joining us on the Doug Gottlieb Show. Like, more ammo for you is pretty simple. Like, the Lakers were actually not in a good place in the bubble, right? But they had favorable draws. Right? They were playing the Rockets, who had no chance of beating them, none. Right, that was the absolute terrible matchup for the Rockets. They knew it, everybody knew it, but they were still in kind of a bad mental space, much like the Clippers and everybody else. And then when the Kenosha stuff happened, they got 2 game days off, so they had like 3 days where there's nothing happening, and they kind of got to rest, and that helped them. And then their families showed up, and that helped them. And then the Clippers lost, and they're like, "Dude, this is a," and then they didn't have to play the Bucks. So you didn't, and the Heat weren't healthy. So, I mean, and I'm not sure even all factors that no one mentioned, but that's what happens when you win a championship. It's like the Warriors when they won the first championship, like nobody mentions, or nobody mentions when the Cavs came back from 3-1. Like, not only was Draymond suspended, but Andrew Bogut got hurt, didn't play the rest of the series. Like, those are big things. So it is interesting on what happens. I haven't asked you about this off air. I'm asking you, what happens in Boston to fix that thing? Because that thing is not working.
Yeah, no, it's not. And I'll be honest, I have not heard anything definitive in terms of coaching change or what dramatic change they could potentially make when it comes to the roster. The difficulty anytime when you're dealing with Danny Ainge when it comes to the roster in particular is that he's involved in seemingly in every conversation, and that's not made up. He is genuinely exploring every option, but what he ultimately is willing to do is always a far cry from the conversations and the innuendo that is out there about what they could potentially do. So they need to be fixed in a major way, and the Kemba Walker contract is going to hurt them in a big way. A lot of people saw that as a win for them when they made the deal, but ultimately they are overpaying in a major way, and then they're stuck with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, who are they're duplicative, and you need to make a decision at some point. And the difficulty there is you could potentially pick wrong. You could go with Jason Tatum. Jaylen Brown, I think, has a little more athleticism. I don't know if he can be a better player, but 2 years from now, he might just be. At one point this season, he was demonstrating that he could be. And so Danny's got to make some tough decisions, and he has to make some decisions that are ultimately going to fall on him. And up to this point, he's found a way to avoid that. But if they're going to take the next step to being a true championship contender, then he's going to have to pull the trigger on a major move. Because as is, it's not as if there's one little tweak and they get better. They need to do something significant in order to be considered title contenders next season.
You buying the Nets?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself because I think the Knicks are limited. I don't know how much they can do, but I will be very interested to see if that's the second round series that we see, because it will be, fights, styles makes fights, and they're two opposite styles. And the Tom Thibodeau and the way he coaches defense and what they'll try to do to the Nets, I'd be very interested in seeing how those games are officiated and how uncomfortable they can make the Nets in a 7-game series.
He's Ric Bucher. Check him out tomorrow on Undisputed. He's also on Speak for Yourself. You can follow him on social media at Ric Bucher, RICBUCHER. Buch, great stuff, man. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure, Doug.
Baseball players always find a unique way to injure themselves. Find out how next.